Hello everybody, this is Mr. Laubach. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, we are going to dive into one of the most pivotal land deals in American history, the Louisiana Purchase. It was a bargain price, a strategic power move, and it doubled the size of the United States in one fell swoop. But how did it happen? Why did it matter? And what were the consequences? That's what we are going to unpack in this video. So let's start by painting a picture of America in the early 1800s. The United States was a young nation, only a couple decades old. And in 1803, the nation was just states clustered along the East Coast. But to the west lay the vast, mysterious Louisiana Territory, covering lands from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, as you can see in this image. The territory had changed hands among European powers several times. Originally, it was a French colony, ceded to Spain in the 1760s after France lost the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War. But by 1800, the French leader, Napoleon Bonaparte, took it back, intending to use it to support his empire in the Caribbean. But things didn't go quite as planned. Napoleon faced several challenges. For one, France was on the brink of war with Britain again. And then a massive slave uprising in the French Caribbean colony, which is now Haiti, left Napoleon struggling to maintain control there. This is known as the Haitian Revolution. With his resources stretched thin, the Louisiana Territory suddenly seemed more like a burden than an asset to Napoleon and France. The negotiations begin. Meanwhile, in the U.S., President Thomas Jefferson was keeping a close eye on New Orleans. Why? Because New Orleans was the gateway to the Mississippi River through the Gulf of Mexico, the major trade route for goods to and from the central United States. When Spain, who briefly controlled Louisiana, restricted American access to New Orleans, U.S. farmers, merchants, and Jefferson himself worried. So Jefferson sent Robert Livingston to negotiate with France. He wanted to buy just New Orleans and maybe some surrounding land, just enough to secure American access to the Mississippi River. But when Livingston got to France, he got an offer that no one was expecting. Napoleon was willing to sell not just New Orleans, but the entire Louisiana Territory, just for $15 million. It was quite a deal. Think about it. 828,000 square miles for about 3 cents per acre. But there was a catch. Jefferson was a strict constitutionalist, and he worried about whether the U.S. Constitution actually allowed him to buy land. Jefferson toiled with this a lot, being the strict constructionalist. Ultimately, he decided it was too big of an opportunity to pass up. After all, this land would be a foundation for his vision of a nation of small, independent farmers. Congress agreed, and the Louisiana Purchase Treaty was signed on April 30th, 1803. The impact of the purchase. So what did the Louisiana Purchase mean for the United States? First and foremost, as we mentioned earlier, it doubled the size of the nation in territory. This new land was a gold mine of resources, rich soil, timber, and minerals. With this new territory, Jefferson's dream of an empire of liberty seemed within reach. He imagined a nation of self-sustained farmers, free from the corruption and poverty of European cities. The purchase also provided the U.S. with strategic control over the Mississippi River and the port of New Orleans, strengthening America's economic position and its independence from European influence. The Lewis and Clark Expedition. To better understand this new vast land, Jefferson commissioned the Lewis and Clark Expedition in 1804. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, along with their team, set off to explore the territory, mapping rivers, encountering native tribes, and cataloging plants and animals never seen by Americans before. This wasn't just about maps. The Lewis and Clark expedition established relationships with several Native American tribes. They documented over 300 species of plants and animals, and they paved the way for future settlers to head west. Consequences for Native Americans. But there's a part of the story we can't overlook: the impact on Native Americans. The Louisiana Territory was already home to diverse Native nations who hadn't agreed to any of this. They weren't part of the negotiation, but their land was being claimed without their consent. In the years following the purchase, the U.S. government would push westward, often clashing with Native communities and eventually enacting policies that displaced them, like the Trail of Tears in the 1830s. While the Louisiana Purchase was a huge step forward for the U.S., it marked the beginning of a tragic period for Native Americans. Now, it should be noted that there were people that were against the Louisiana Purchase. Number one, the Federalists. The Federalist Party, particularly those in New England and along the East Coast, were the most vocal group against the purchase. They were concerned about the constitutionality of it. They also feared that the acquisition of large territory in the West would lead to the creation of new states that would likely vote Democratic-Republican, Jefferson's party. And that would mean the Federalist influence would diminish nationwide. Many Federalists were concerned that expanding the country into vast, sparsely populated territories would weaken the existing political and economic structure, which was based on the more populous, well-established states on the East Coast. There were also anti-expansionists. They opposed the purchase because they believed it would be difficult to govern such a vast territory, and they questioned the feasibility of incorporating distant lands into the U.S. framework. They worried about the cost of defending and administering to the new territories. So it's important to remember that not everybody was in favor of the Louisiana Purchase. Now, finally, the legacy. The Louisiana Purchase was a landmark in American history. It transformed the United States, opened up the West, and solidified the country's continental ambitions. But it also raised questions about power, constitutionality, and the human cost of expansion. In retrospect, it's seen as one of the greatest real estate deals of all time, setting the stage for the growth of the United States as a continental power. But like many turning points, its legacy is complicated, full of both opportunities and injustices. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learn more about the Louisiana Purchase. Have a great rest of the day.